In Plants vs. Zombies 2, there's a total of 11 different worlds, and within those worlds you can unlock tons of different plants. And today in this video I'm going to be showing you the best plant from each world in my opinion. Obviously you might have a different opinion than mine, but I'm going to be showing you in my opinion which are the best plants from each world, and I'm going to be showing you why. So yeah, starting off we're actually going to be looking at the tutorial plants. Now I know this technically isn't a world, but there are 5 different tutorial plants, so might as well see which one's the best. And well, out of these 5 plants there's actually a really easy option, as well sunflowers there. As well, you basically use sunflower in basically every single level in the game or some variant of it, so yeah, sunflower is just a really important plant, and so obviously it'll be the best out of these 5 plants, as well, is literally necessary to have. So yeah, even though there's better counterparts to this plant that you unlock later in the game, this one is still necessary for early game, as well there's no other sun producing plants at the beginning. But yeah, moving on to the first actual world, we have Ancient Egypt. Now within this world there's actually a lot of good plants, but I've narrowed it down to only one, being Repeater. Now the reason why I chose Repeater is, well, it's definitely the strongest plant out of all the Ancient Egypt plants, as well, but just shoots 2 peas at once and it actually deals a really good amount of damage. Especially when you place multiple repeaters in the same column, it ends up just making them extremely powerful, as well, since they shoot 2 peas at once, you could place a few of them in the column and make it really easy just to kill zombies. It also has a really quick recharge time, and the only really downside to it is that it costs 200 sun, which is more expensive than most plants, but the stats of the plant just make up for it, as well, it's just really strong. Moving on to the next world, we have Pirate Seas. Now in this world there's really 2 plants I could consider the best, being Snapdragon and Cherry Bomb. Both of these plants are really good, but I ended up narrowing it down to just Cherry Bomb. As well, don't get me wrong, Snapdragon is just a really powerful plant, and honestly I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people think Snapdragon is a better plant, as well, but it's just a really good plant overall, but I do think that Cherry Bomb is just slightly better. As well, the Cherry Bomb insta-kills every single zombie in a 3x3 radius, unless if it's a Gargantuar, as well, Gargantuars need 2 Cherry Bombs to kill them. But yeah, for most normal zombies, you can instantly kill them with the Cherry Bomb in a 3x3 radius. Which makes the Cherry Bomb really powerful, as well, but if you're in a really bad situation with a ton of zombies in one area, you could easily just kill all of them. And while the only real downside to the Cherry Bomb is that it takes 35 seconds to recharge, which is a really long time. But keep in mind, you could always end up using plant food to recharge the Cherry Bomb instantly, so if you're in a really bad situation, you could easily just use plant food for it. So yeah, overall, the Cherry Bomb is just a really overpowered plant that only really has one downside to it, being the recharge time. Moving on to the next world, we have the Wild West. Now, just like Pirate Seas, this was between 2 plants, being Lightning Reed and Wintermelon. But out of these 2, I ended up choosing Wintermelon, as well, it's overall just a way more powerful plant. As well, even though Lightning Reed is just a really good plant, it doesn't deal as much damage as the Wintermelon, as well, you need a ton of different Lightning Reeds if you want to deal any real damage. Not only does it just freeze the zombie that it hits, it also freezes all the zombies around it. It also deals an insane amount of damage. As well, even though the Wintermelon costs tons of sun, it ends up making up for it, as well, but just deals an insane amount of damage. It also works good with other plants, as well, but freezes the zombies, so yeah, it just ends up being a really good plant all around. So yeah, even though Lightning Reed is just a good plant overall, I would have to say that Wintermelon is just a lot better than it. And well, Wintermelon also has a really fast recharge time, but that doesn't really matter, as well, by the time you get 500 sun again to place another one down, it'll take a lot longer than 5 seconds usually. Moving on to the next world, we have Far Future. Now this was just a really easy choice, being Magnifying Grass. Now as you probably already know, Magnifying Grass is just a really good plant. As well, this plant actually runs off your sun, so yeah, every time you click the Magnifying Grass, it'll take a certain amount of sun away from you and use it to shoot a beam at a zombie. And while these beams actually deal an insane amount of damage, it could kill some really powerful zombies really quickly. As well, the beams of sun that they shoot out is just really powerful, and well, since the Magnifying Grass only costs 50 sun and has a very short recharge time of only 5 seconds. So yeah, it ends up just being a really powerful plant, especially when you use plants like Twin Sunflower, Primal Sunflower, or any just really good sun producer. You could just place tons of them in the back and just use Magnifying Grass to attack all the zombies. So yeah, because of how much damage the Magnifying Grass deals to the zombies, it's definitely the best out of all of the Far Future plants. Moving on to the next world, we have the Dark Ages. Now, just like Far Future, this was a really easy decision being Sunshroom. Now, Sunshroom is probably the second best sun producer in the entire game, only being behind Primal Sunflower. As though since Sunstream only costs 25 sun and has a very short recharge time, you can place tons of them, and as they grow throughout the level, they just produce lots of sun. So yeah, by the time the Sunstreams are fully leveled up by the end of the level, they'll be producing tons of sun and they'll just end up being extremely overpowered. So yeah, for that reason, Sunstream is obviously the best plant in the Dark Ages, as well as just a really good sun producer and one of the best in the entire game. Moving on, we have the Big Wave Beach. Now, the best plant in the Big Wave Beach is the Banana Launcher. And while this plant only really has one downside to it, being that it costs a total of 500 sun. So yeah, it's just a really expensive plant, so unless if you have a lot of sun producers, you won't really be able to place many of them. But I do have to say that the Banana Launcher is just a really powerful plant as well, but basically insta-kills every zombie that it hits besides Gargantuars. And well, even though that it does take a little while to recharge after you shoot the banana, it's still worth it as well, but deals a ton of damage. So yeah, due to the sheer amount of damage it deals, this plant is definitely the best out of all of the Big Wave Beach plants. As well, even with the high sun cost, it still makes up for it with the insane amount of damage that it deals. Moving on to the Frostbite Caves. Now, out of all the plants in this world, I would have to say that Char Guard is probably the best. Now, Char Guard costs 75 sun and actually takes 15 seconds to recharge, which is longer than most plants. But it does make up for that, as well as just a really useful plant. As well, when a zombie walks onto the Char Guard, it shoots the zombie back. And well, when it shoots it back, it actually deals a small amount of damage. So yeah, it's overall just a really good plant as well, but if you're in a tough situation, you could easily just place these in front of your really good plants to stop the zombies from eating them. As though this works really well if you have really powerful plants in the back that cost tons of sun and you want to guard them, you could easily just place Char Guard there. And well, it's also really cheap, only costing 75 sun, so it's definitely worth it. And well, the only really bad thing about it is that after it hits a zombie back a certain amount of times, it'll end up just losing all its leaves and it'll just look really strange. And after that, all it really does is act as a shield that just gets eaten by zombies pretty easily. But yeah, Char Guard is overall just a really good plant. Moving on, we have the Lost City. Now, out of all of these plants, I would have to say that Stalia is probably the best. As well, this plant literally costs 0 sun, so it's just a free plant, but it does end up taking 20 seconds to recharge. Which actually is a pretty long amount of time, but after all, it is a pretty good plant, so it makes sense why it takes a little longer to recharge. As of when you place this plant down and a zombie walks into it, it ends up freezing some zombies with some purple perfume. And well, it also freezes some zombies around it, which ends up making for a really good plant, as well not only does it freeze just one zombie, it also freezes all the zombies around it. Which ends up being extremely useful if you have a large pack of zombies and you want to just slow them all down. And well, this plant is also free and it literally costs 0 sun, which makes it even better. So yeah, out of all of these plants in the world, I would have to say that Stalia is probably the best. Moving on to the next world, we have Neon Mixtape Tour. Now, in Neon Mixtape Tour, there's really not a lot of good plants, and really the only really good one is Time Warp. As though this plant is just really good, as well, it literally sends all the zombies back to the beginning of the level. Which is extremely useful, as well, if a zombie's about to get to your house, you could easily just place down this guy and they'll be teleported all the way back to the beginning of the lawn. And well, this plant has one really big downside to it, being that it takes a whole 90 seconds to recharge. Which means when you're playing a level, you'll only really be able to use this guy once. As well, for Plants vs. Zombies, 90 seconds is just a really long time, and most levels you won't really be able to use him multiple times. But yeah, he is pretty cheap though, only costing 100 sun, so that is one pretty good benefit. But yeah, out of every single plant in Neon Mixtape Tour, Time Warp is probably really the only extremely good one, as well, but a lot of the plants in Neon Mixtape Tour just really aren't that good. Now moving on to the next world, we have Jurassic Marsh. Now, Jurassic Marsh overall just has tons of really good plants, as though 4 out of the 5 plants in the world are just really good. So there's actually some really tough competition inside of Jurassic Marsh for the best plant, but out of all of them, I would have to say that Primal Potato Mine is probably the best. And well, I would have to say that Primal Potato Mine is probably one of the best plants in the entire game. As well, it only costs 50 sun and deals an insane amount of damage. as when a zombie steps on it, it blows up in a 3x3 radius and deals an insane amount of damage, which basically insta-kills every zombie besides gargantuars. And while unlike the potato mine that actually takes a while to come out of the ground, this plant only takes 3 seconds to come out of the ground, so it's basically instant. So all you really have to do is place a tile or two back from the zombie and then you'll be fine. So yeah, the only really downside to Primal Potato Mine is that it takes 25 seconds to recharge, but that makes sense since the plant is just so overpowered. Obviously it'll take a while to recharge, as it would just be way too powerful if it took any less time to recharge. And while moving on to the final world, we have Modern Day. Now, Moonflower is definitely the best plant in this world, and there's one simple reason why. As it was literally the reason why other plants are good in this world, as it powers all the other shadow plants. Meaning that if Moonflower didn't exist, all the shadow plants just wouldn't really be that powerful, as it would have nothing to power it up with. So yeah, having Moonflower able to power up the other shadow plants and making them extremely overpowered makes this plant itself extremely overpowered. And while it also produces a really good amount of sun, especially when it's powered up by other Moonflowers, as well, it just ends up producing even more sun. And while Moonflower is also really cheap, as well, but only costs 50 sun, it has a 10-second recharge time. So yeah, overall, Moonflower is definitely the best plant within the modern day world. So yeah, that was all the worlds. Comment down below if you agree with me or not, and if you really want to, you could even make your own list in the comment section. As well, I think it would be interesting to see your guys' opinions on this, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like and subscribe, and yeah, have a great day.